Even before the COVID-19 pandemic struck, 2020 was not going to be a great year for the economy. Now it's looking very grim indeed. We are forecasting a contraction of the global economy of 4.2% in 2020, much worse than in 2008, 2009, after the global financial crisis. All G7 countries and all but 2 G20 countries are going to experience a recession, according to our forecasts. Latin America to decline by 5.4%, the US by 4%, the MENA region by 4.1%, Asia by 1.6%. So there aren't any bright spots anywhere. And worst of all, we're forecasting a recession in the Eurozone this year of 8%. The impact will be felt via the supply and demand channels, the latter via consumption and investment. Supply chains are being disrupted, and we expect global trade to fall this year, to contract by about 25%. We assume that the main impact will be felt in the first and second quarter, and we'll see a modest recovery in the second half of this year. There's many risks to this forecast, not least the risk of a second wave of the pandemic and new lockdowns, although lockdowns of the sort that we've seen in the first and second quarters of this year are not in our baseline forecast. The recession in Europe will be deeper and the recovery slower than elsewhere, and we do see quite stark divergences in the recovery. First of all, between Asia and other developed economies in the West. China was first out of the lockdown and will be the first back to work and the first to recover, plus it had a stronger starting position. In general, we see the recovery in outside of Asia being quite protracted, a very sharp decline followed by a very slow recovery. In Europe, we expect Germany to recover faster than other economies, but none will recover until 2022. Some of them will recover in 2022, the majority in 2023, and some, such as Italy, we do not expect to recover even by 2024. Some of the factors that will shape the recovery, in our opinion, are the starting positions of each country, the institutional capacity of countries, the fiscal space, and the efficacy of the distribution channels, monetary policy flexibility, the sectoral composition of each economy, export market exposure, and the radicalism of the policy response. Government interventions in response to the crisis have been extensive, and they will reshape European economies in the coming years. At the national level, emergency fiscal plans were rolled out rapidly with liquidity support for companies and workers. Fiscal deficits and public debt will rise rapidly in the coming year by 10 to 15 percentage points in many countries. It will be difficult to roll back government financial support measures. They may be difficult to unwind, although austerity seems to be a political non-starter. We expect more statist industrial policies from governments across Europe. States may adopt coordinated domestic industrial and trade policies to prop up exporters and secure supply chains. We do not expect a sovereign debt crisis in the near term. Debt levels will spike, but short-term risks will be mitigated by ECB and EU intervention. The ECB is playing a very important role in maintaining access to financing, maintaining market sentiment, and reducing the risk of a debt crisis. The chances of an effective EU fiscal response increased following a Franco-German proposal for a post-pandemic European Recovery Fund worth 500 billion euros. And on May the 27th, the European Commission unveiled its proposal to create a 750 billion post-pandemic recovery instrument, which we'll hear more about today. The proposal will be discussed at the next summit of EU leaders in mid-June and has already secured the crucial backing of Germany. However, some Northern European countries remain opposed to increasing the EU budget and to the idea of joint debt issuance, meaning that there's a risk that the measures in the proposal could be watered down.